This is a guerrilla democracy news special. Reporting the news which the mainstream media daren't report. Disabled pensioner murder witness attacked. Disabled old age pensioner beaten up and left for dead. Mr. David Neilson, a murder witness in the Katrina Taylor murder case, has been attacked and left for dead. On Friday the 20th of September at 5:30 p.m., disabled old age pensioner Mr. David Neilson was attacked as he went out to check his caravan outside his home on South Coast Road in Peacehaven, Brighton. Obscured by a 1.8-meter high fence, running down the length of his property, illegally put up while he was out of the country on business, Mr. David Neilson was unable to see what was making a noise outside. Left for dead. He says exclusively to Guerrilla Democracy.
I heard a noise at the back of my flat and thought I had left my caravan unlocked. Going out I found it was locked, but I unlocked it to see where the noise had come from. Just as I opened the door, I heard a noise behind me. As I turned around, I was struck in the right eye 3 times, blinding me. He punched me to my body before falling into my caravan. I was, I think, semi-conscious. The man said, "That's from Brotherton, don't waste your time calling the police." I must have passed out.
David Joe Neilson, a thorn in the side to Sussex police and local government, has been crusading against police and government corruption for the last 25 years. This vicious attack on a disabled pensioner is but the latest in a long line of attacks he has suffered over the years. Attacks include attempted murder as a vehicle mounted the curb to run him down. Attacked by gangland criminals in his own home. It is worthy of note that upon calling the police for help, the police arrested Mr. David Neilson and allowed his attackers to leave unquestioned and unmentioned. Harassed and threatened by local government officials and police under the Harassment Act. It is also worthy of note that Mr. David Neilson proved he was innocent under the Harassment Act because under the law anyone exposing corruption is allowed to write letters asking answers to serious questions. Disabled old age pensioner left to die in his own excrement and urine. Mr. David Neilson continues his harrowing account of the attack exclusively to Guerrilla Democracy.
I don't know for how long I made it back into my flat, which I had left unlocked. Getting inside, I collapsed on my bed, coming to around about 2 a.m. I had wet and crapped myself. I was in extreme pain and too frightened to call the police. I did the best with my eye, which was still bleeding, then cleaned myself up taking painkillers and sleeping tablets. I went back to bed.
Frightened to call the police. Mr. David Neilson, the Invisible Man. A disabled old age pensioner left to fend for himself, too frightened to ring the police for help. This is the damning reality of what happens to a man standing up for justice. Since exposing police and local government corruption, David Neilson has seen his world turned upside down. He suffers fibromyalgia due to the stress of being a victim of corruption. Unable to report serious crime to the police. Social services provide help until a point comes where after the help ends suddenly and for no apparent reason. Local charities such as Age UK have abandoned him. Local PCSOs shun him. Local residents shun him. Solicitors provide help until a certain point, whereafter their help ends with no apparent reason. For all intent and purposes, Mr. David Neilson is an invisible man which no one sees, no one cares about, takes notice of, or are bothered to engage with. He knows more than anyone what they, the dark forces at work in Sussex, have planned. He says,
"They're waiting for me to die."
It looks like they are tired of waiting. Mr. David Neilson continues.
Coming to later that day, I found a cut on my back and both knees were cut. The sight in my eye was okay. Looking back, I believe the blows to this eye were done to blind me. The man was hidden behind the new fence.
The new 1.8-meter high fence in question, as pictured above, is the latest in a long line of incidents which abuse Mr. David Neilson's human rights and further excludes and hides him from public life. Against all planning permission and against his consent, a 1.8-meter-high wooden fence was erected, for what can only be surmised, is to cover up the information of police corruption which Mr. David Neilson had put up on his property. Sign stolen. The sign, The Murder House www.vic.20m.com, was removed and stolen. Its website link to a public letter to a particular individual asking for a public meeting to put on record the crimes and cover-ups of Sussex police and local government officials. Mr. David Neilson and Matthew Taylor act for Katrina Taylor's family under the Justice for Katrina Taylor banner. Stolen sign. The Katrina Taylor murder cover-up continues. The Katrina Taylor murder cover-up has been further exposed by Jim Murphy, a DJ on New Funk Radio, a current affairs internet-based station broadcasting to more than 12,000 people worldwide. Having started his own investigation into Katrina Taylor's murder, having read the signs on the murder house, Jim Murphy started a petition calling for an investigation into Sussex Police's handling of the Katrina murder case. It can only be reasoned that the fence was erected as a result of Jim Murphy's investigation and to stifle any further public interest. So far, Jim Murphy's investigation has uncovered startling new evidence of an ongoing cover-up. The Katrina Taylor court transcripts have been destroyed by the very company paid to archive court transcripts. Mr. Bevan, QC for the prosecution, vouched for the good character of Katrina Taylor's killers. Who is Brotherton? Who are the dark forces at work in Sussex? Who would attack a disabled old-aged pensioner? Crime lord Mark Slade. The usual suspects are either Sussex Police or contractors attached to Sussex Police. Mr. David Neilson alleges that Sussex Police are in the pocket of a crime lord called Mark Slade, based in Hastings but now thought to be somewhere in Bulgaria. Mark Slade operated a number of security companies which acted as a front for drug dealing, credit fraud, theft and a variety of other serious crimes. Alarm bells should have sounded when looking at the names he used for his companies. Names such as Grim Limited, Grab It Limited, Pure Profit Limited, Deadly Limited and FU Bigot Limited. His crimes were so unique Parliament had to change the laws to stop him. An amendment to the Theft Act 1968 was made in 1996 to outlaw the offence of obtaining a money transfer by deception. Essentially, he seized property owned by other people, using legal means through British courts, by repossessing flats for non-payment of nominal ground rents, usually of only around £50. The legal owners were powerless to stop him and Mark Slade went on to amass a multi-million-pound fortune by repeating his scam on thousands of victims. The Guardian newspaper reported on this and can be read further here. This is not the first time Mr. David Neilson has been attacked by members of Mark Slade's gang. After the murder of Katrina Taylor, Mr. David Neilson was attacked inside his flat, but bizarrely, Sussex Police arrested Mr. David Neilson instead of the thugs who attacked him. This sums up everything Mr. David Neilson has been through. This vicious attack is the latest in a long line of attacks, and if it wasn't for a higher power protecting him, his guardian angel, Mr. David Neilson would be dead now.
I believe Mr. Neilson is in extreme physical danger from Sussex Police and contractors working in partnership with Sussex Police. If for any reason Sussex Police arrest or grab Mr. David Joe Neilson, I believe he would die in their custody. If either Mr. David Joe Neilson, I or members of Katrina Taylor's come under any form of threats, I will hold you directly responsible.
Or perhaps friends of Simon Kirby MP did it. Following the article is Simon Kirby MP a Freemason, published by Matthew Taylor. In his capacity as the prospective Member of Parliament for Brighton Kemp Town, a veiled threat of violence was made against him from a supporter of Simon Kirby. Black Cherry from Brighton, ranked a shaman on the political UK debate forum, posted a reply to a thread threatening,
"I'll make it my mission to personally track you down in a dark car park and show me what it means to be a shaman."
The murder house is the White Elephant in Sussex. the murder house. Mr. David Neilson named his property the murder house because it was the upstairs flat that the killers of Katrina Taylor returned to that night over 17 years ago. It was Mr. David Neilson who reported the information to police that pointed to her killers and where the murder weapon was hidden and recovered. For 24 hours Mr. David Neilson was held up as a model citizen and a hero for solving the case. Within days the elation of helping the police crack a murder case was replaced with horror as the police turned against him and his life turned upside down. Who cares? The bottom line is that a disabled old-age pensioner is being denied his human rights and left to die. Guerrilla Democracy calls on Age UK, Social Services, the Evening Argus and the world to take notice and help this man.